What is going on, everybody? How's everybody doing today on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon? We're back at it again with the NFC West Roundtable. And of course, we got my guy Joe back. So we got Sam Dogg. We got CG Ruthless Sports representing the 49ers. Guys, we're going to have a very, very good show today. Big shout out to everybody that's currently in the stream right now. If you guys are looking at this, panel, you're going to see a new face here. It's going to be none other than Sam Dogg, the infamous, going to be representing the Seattle Seahawks today in place of Steezy. I'm going to give him about 1 minute. Go ahead and shout yourself out, man, how they can find you and how long you've been a Seahawk fan.
Well, I'm Sam Dogg, the infamous 253. I live an hour south of Seattle. I've had my season tickets with my dad for the Seahawks since 2004 and been a fan. I never got to go to the old Kingdom. My first Seahawks game was at Husky Stadium, but I've been a fan even through all the tough years in the 90s and been loving what I've been doing ever since. You can find me at Sam Dogg, the infamous 253. I just did my game picks back on Sunday with my friend Dallas Stewart. We do that usually we would do it Tuesday unless the Monday night game is a blowout, and we just decided to do it while the Monday night game concludes if it's a blowout. And then we do red zone reactions whenever the Seahawks aren't playing on Sundays too, which are also really fun because we get to react to the games too. So that's where you can find me. I've also collaborated with Norbcam a bunch of other times too. He's actually special announcement for the home opener when we play the Titans in week 2. He is going to be joining me to do player interactions, which is what I always do every week by the tunnel and get the players fired up.
Nice, man. That's awesome. Well, let's get started here, man. This is going to be our official week 1 roundtable, and I'm absolutely super excited to bring you guys, everybody in the chat, this type of content. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday. If not on my channel, it'll either be on Joe, CG, Sam Dogg. We're basically going to go ahead and alternate. So if you want to subscribe to all these content creators, everything's going to be in the description below of this video. All you need to do is click on that link and just hit that subscribe button. But let's get started, boys. We're here to talk about week 1. We finally got here. We were talking multiple different times where, preseason, who we think is going to get cut, blah, 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 blah. But now we're here. This is the moment we've been waiting for. How are you feeling over there, Joe?
I'm feeling absolutely phenomenal, man. I'm ready for this week to finally end. Work has been more difficult this week. I'm excited to watch the Rams beat up on some Bears this weekend, man.
Love it, man. And CG, man, how you doing over there? How you feeling about this week 1?
I'm pumped, man. We're going to curb stomp Detroit, and that's a statement. Just letting it be out there.
Love it, man. Love it. All right, Sam Dogg, man, what are your first official takes before we start talking about week 1?
Well, my first official take, I'm hoping my Seahawks can get the job done against the Colts. We are 5-0 all-time against Carson Wentz in his career, and I'm hoping to make that 6-0 all-time since he has historically struggled against my Seahawks. But I'm not sleeping on him because they got a really good defense, too, and they got a good running game, too, with Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, and what's the name of the third guy again? He always seems to slip my mind. The third running back.
That's a great question.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah, and then, of course, T.Y. Hilton's on the IR for now, but still got to worry about a solid wide receiver that the Colts picked up, and we saw a lot of last year in Michael Pittman. He's pretty damn good receiver, too. So secondary is my biggest concern for the team. Some parts of the defense, I'm really hoping the pass rush can do good, and offensive line's another concern, but hoping for the best. That's all I'm saying. 1 week at a time, 1 play at a time, and I never assume records.
Yeah, that's fair, man. That's fair. Well, let's jump into it here, man. Let's go. What I plan doing here, we're going to talk about each one of our matchups. I'm going to, so like, let's say, for example, if it's me, I'm going to talk about obviously Titans versus Cardinals. And then we'll go based off, kind of in a circle and be like, hey, do you think we're going to win this in terms of a Cardinals, or do you think the Titans are going to win, that type of stuff. So let's get started here with the Cardinals versus the Titans. This is going to be my matchup. And personally, looking at your guys' schedule, I think I have the hardest matchup to start off week 1. You guys can disagree with me if you want, but I do think that the Cardinals do start off with a pretty hard schedule. Not only them, but we do got the Vikings the week after. Big shout out to my guy, 49ers Ultimate Report. 49ers will make the Birds. CG said, what's up, CG? All right, cool. So anyways, so I think we have the hardest week 1 matchup. Now, obviously, I want to be optimistic here and say the Cardinals are going to win, but this is going to be a tall task to ask for our secondary that just came off of a retired Malcolm Butler. I I want to get your guys' takes first, and then I'll go ahead and give you my take if I think we're going to win. So, Joe, let's start off with you. How do you think the Cardinals are going to match up, and be honest?
It's a very interesting situation that we're seeing in week 1 going against a really tough team in the Titans on the road too. So that's a tough one, man. Titans are a pretty good squad right now. We saw that Ryan Tannehill, he was kind of being held back in Miami. And then when he went out to Tennessee, he really kind of just showed who he can be, And then obviously, that absolute monster in the backfield, Derrick Henry, is no joke, man.
Yeah.
And then you add in now Julio Jones with Brown. That's a tall task, man. I'm not sure that the Arizona Cardinals are good enough to do that in week 1. I think that if this game was like week 14, I would maybe feel a little bit different about it because of the new additions that the Cardinals have brought in. Maybe they'd be a little bit more, used to playing with each other, all that stuff. But it's a lot of new faces in there, and I think it's going to be a tough one, man. Really, the Titans, their biggest addition is just Julio Jones. That doesn't hurt them at all. So I think it's a Titans win.
Hurts my heart. Okay, CG, man, you go.
Well, Tennessee is a good team, and you guys have secondary problems. So Julio Jones is being added to their acquisition. That's going to be a big problem. A.J. Brown is no slouch. They just got what is his name? Josh Reynolds from the Rams. He's no slouch too. So I hate to say it, man. I'm not sounding like I'm against you, but Tennessee's fully loaded. Arizona's got a good offense, but can their defense make some stops? That's the one question. Can Arizona make a stop on this offense, man? We shall see. Prove me wrong.
Sam Dogg, man, you're the new guy here, man. Let me know. Hopefully you got some good news for me. Go ahead.
Well, I know your defense is looking stout. We finally get to see what J.J. Watt is going to do. And then I know Chandler Jones, the rumors that was going on with him requesting a trade. We don't know if that's still going to happen. There's still possibilities that could happen. But I think, your secondary may have a long day with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, and like CG just mentioned, Josh Reynolds, formerly of Joe's Rams, and Derrick Henry. We all know what Derrick Henry is about. The guy's coming off a 2K rushing yards season. That's going to be tough to stop, man. Those Alabama backs, man, are not to be messed with, man. But if you guys can limit the damage that Henry can do and shut down the receiving core or get some pressure, if Watt can get pressure on Tannehill, I think that's going to be one of the key things is shutting down the run and trying to limit the damage of Julio and A.J. Brown and the receiver core. But, looking at it from this matchup, and in Tennessee, their weakness, they lost Malcolm Butler, in free agency to the Arizona Cardinals, which was surprising. Retired. I know you guys just got A.J. Green from the Cincinnati Bengals, too. So it'll be anxious to see if he and, of course, J.J. Watt can stay healthy this season. But I ended up picking the Titans in this game too, so I'm going to stick with that. I know how you feel, but I think but it could be a good high scoring game, maybe depending on
okay.
Second star. So we could see a lot of offense from both sides, maybe a shootout. We'll see.
Yeah, that's fair. I recently make a preview out this last Monday. It was yesterday, and I said that it's going to be a high scoring game in my personal opinion. I know the Titans are going to be tall task to ask. If we limit, Henry to 80 yards, a touchdown, I feel like that's a win there. But, man, I feel like he's just going to run rampant, and I'm really worried about it. But I got to go with my Cardinals and call me a homer. Originally, I said Titans are going to win. But, obviously, since you're on Monday of week 1, you want to change your mind. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go Cardinals. I'm going to be the one guy that's going to go ahead and say my Cardinals are going to come out with the W. So, next week, I'm going to be like, bro, what was going on? So, I had something to gloat about. But if not, you guys can all bag on me. So, all right, let's move on to the next matchup. And that's going to be Rams versus Bears. Boo, boo, boo. And that's going to be Andy Dalton versus the Rams. Go ahead, man.
This is a strong matchup for week 1. It's one that when I saw it pop out on Sunday Night Football for week 1, I obviously got excited about that. But I'm also excited that we get to see Matthew Stafford's debut against a team that he's a little bit familiar with. And, of course, they're also familiar with him, but it's going to be the first time that we actually see him in live action on the field because, of course, he doesn't play in preseason. None of our starters play in preseason. So, I'm really excited about that. I know that the big conversation is that our defense really took a hit with, John Johnson, Troy Hill, Michael Brockers leaving. And those are absolutely, bad people to see leave. But I think that, honestly, the bigger departures than that is our secondary coach, Aubrey Pleasant, and our linebacker coach, Joe Barry. I think that those are going to be the biggest differences that the in-depth fan really notices. But I like the talent that the Rams have on the defensive side of the football, so I think we'll be able to adjust to that. And Raheem Morris coming in, I think, is a strong addition, replacing Brandon Staley, who's now the Chargers head coach. So, I'm feeling pretty good about the Rams in this game. I think that overall we're just a stronger team than the Chicago Bears. It's one of those situations where you compare the rosters, and I think that the Rams, on all counts, if you look at roster and coaching staff, I just think that the Rams are the better squad here. And primetime SoFi, first time that fans are going to see a regular season game in person at SoFi. There's a lot of reasons to be excited, and the best uniforms in football we'll see them this weekend. You're muted, I believe.
Yes, I'm sorry. CG, go ahead and give us your take.
Oh, okay. All right. So the way I see it is it's going to be an ugly game between the Rams and Bears because defensively, the Bears are no joke, but offensively, I think the Rams are going to win by this advantage. So I'll give it to the Rams because they got a complete team, and Sean McVay knows how to get the best out of these players. And then again, Stafford hasn't fared well against the Chicago Bears. So I'll give him over the hump. I'll give the Rams the edge. They'll win by at least a touchdown. So defensive battle, they're gonna be well tested against this Bears offense, which they don't got really much. Let's be honest, just Montgomery and Allen Robinson, and who else? Like it's hard for me to pick against the Rams.
Yeah, no, that's very true. All right, Sam Dog, you're up.
I don't know what the heck the Bears are thinking and not starting Justin Fields week 1 is what
Ding,
I
ding,
like
ding,
to know.
100% agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's just dumb. I mean, Fields is looking like he's ready now. Fields looks the most ready now. And I wasn't so sure what the heck they were thinking and not making him the starter. And obviously, the offense may have their hands full because remember, the Bears still have Roquan Smith and Khalil Mack too. But other than that, Sean McVay, I have a lot of respect for. He's a good head coach. He gets the best out of his offense. Obviously, an offensive guru. And you got Cooper Kupp from Eastern Washington, who played his college ball 5 hours away from where I live on that red field in Cheney, Washington, Eastern Washington. And then, obviously, Robert Woods, who has given me many fits from all the matchups against the Seahawks because he was always big, and I was always pissed every time he would convert a huge third down. It's like, who the heck is guarding Robert Woods, And then, of course, it'll be interesting to see how Stafford does in the new system with McVay. And then you got Sony Michel now with the Cam Akers Achilles injury to replace him. And then you still have Darrell Henderson. And then it's going to be – I think it's going to be a rout. I'll be honest with you. I think the Rams are going to rout Chicago pretty good this game. That was my pick. I picked the Rams to win that game in SoFi Stadium for the first primetime game with fans inside and then I think the reason they gave that game I don't know why the heck this game's even the Sunday night game. I think the Sunday night game should have been the Chiefs and the Browns, to be honest with you.
Oh, 100%. No disrespect to the Rams, but I completely agree. I'm going to make this short and simple, man. I think there's going to be a beatdown that's going to happen, and hopefully by week 2, week 3, we'll start seeing Justin Fields because Andy Dalton, man, he ain't the guy. Like that one guy says on that very popular meme, you're not that guy, man. You're not that guy.
I think one thing that we'll see in this game specifically, though, is because the Rams starters have not taken, any live action snaps at all. I really think that we'll see like a 10-6 halftime, maybe even lower, maybe even like a 7-3 halftime score. And then that second half, I think the Rams are just going to really start rolling.
Yeah, I agree. Perfect. All right, so we're 4-0 on that one.
Khalil Mack is still on that defense.
Yeah, and they got Robert Quinn, who actually, obviously he played for the Rams for many, many years, and I think he brings a total dynamic to that defense. He could have had a better season last year. I think he only had like the 2 sacks, but he's a great player still.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Just don't be surprised if it's going to be a closer game because the Bears will have a good defense. I think it's going to come don't think it's going to be a blowout because I think the last time the Rams played the Bears were giving Rams problems. So I'm just saying, don't underestimate the Bears, even though they don't have a quarterback. It just takes a good team to catch a team at the right time.
That's fair.
That's fair.
All right, next. Go ahead.
Team.
Any given Sunday, man. I always say any given Sunday. Let's move on to the 49ers versus the Lions. CG, give us your little preview here, and then we'll talk about that.
Man, does this even have to be a discussion, man? Come at me if I'm wrong, but we're going to curb stop Detroit. and we're gonna bite those kneecaps like Dan Campbell says, and then he's gonna eat his words. So we're gonna run the ball, we're gonna be effective, and Jimmy G's gonna be the best game manager of that game. So you can book it. We're gonna dominate, but I hope that it wouldn't surprise me if it's gonna be a very close game. But I see it more of a blowout, man. We're gonna beat the smokes out of Detroit.
Wow, Sam Dog, go man, you're up
for this game.
Yes, for this game.
I picked the 49ers, and I don't think it's going to be close at all with what CG's saying. Because they're going to have most of their squad back with Nick Bosa coming back from injury. Of course, you got now the real question mark that I was wanting to know is who is going to be the starting quarterback? Was it going to be Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo? I am anxious to see how some of these former Rams do with the Lions, though, but I don't think they can hang with Kyle Shanahan and that 49er offense. And then that defense is going to be eating up Jared Goff alive again, just like they did last year, even with all the depletions of injuries. So I picked me and my buddy Dallas. We when we did our pick, we picked San Francisco to win pretty good against Detroit. So just saying, I always do that realistic take. I even tell the truth, even if I think my team is going to lose or how I think my team is going to win. I always just got to tell the truth and be honest, like CG always is on his channel, where he says he's brutally, and there's nothing wrong with being honest.
True. All right, man. Yeah, I think
that's
kind
right. I'm brutally honest and nothing but being brutally honest.
Love it, man. Love it. Yeah, I think I agree with you guys there as well. The 49ers are definitely going to beat the Lions. I'm excited to hear what Joe's take, man. I mean, obviously, just because Jared Goff's ties, do you want to see anything different from Jared Goff, or do you not care about him anymore?
I mean, I don't really care ultimately, but you know what? He was our quarterback for a little while. I got nothing against Jared Goff. I'm rooting for him out there, man. But I mean, speaking of the Lions, just a long term, I mean, they've got some good things going on in the front office and stuff. I mean, it's going to be a few years until we really see the effects of that, because that's when you have a front office overhaul, you don't see those effects immediately. But you know, bringing in Brad Holmes for their GM spot and Aubrey Pleasant, who I just mentioned, is actually now the secondary coach of the Lions. So I think in a couple of years, that'll be a strong unit for them too. But Jared Goff has, as a person who's watched every single one of his snaps very intently, you know, he performs best when people don't think he's going to perform well at all. When you expect him to play well, that's usually when he sucks. So everybody's bashing Jared Goff right now, saying that he's going to have this horrible season. He's going to, you know, the Lions are going to be just this crap team. That's what Jared Goff kind of thrives in. He needs that kind of attention from the media of people just saying how bad he is. I mean, for this game, though, I mean, the 49ers are just way too strong of a team to take on these Lions. I mean, the Lions don't really stand a chance here. I think in a couple of years, they'll be able to build themselves a pretty decent squad. But for this season, I mean, Lions are going to be fighting for maybe top 2 or 3 picks in the draft. And, you know, their rebuild is beginning, and I think Jared Goff is in for a long day in this one. But you know, I'm rooting for the kid. I have nothing against him. I'm not sad he's not a Ram, though. I'll say that.
All right, so that's 4-0 again, right? So everybody's saying the Niners are going to win, right?
Yeah, and that's the funny about when Michael Brockers, when you guys first traded for Stafford, there was a funny thing. Michael Brocker said on a tweet or something that Stafford is. This is an upgrade over Goff. And then karma, he gets traded to Detroit where Goff is. And, man.
I talked about that on my show, actually. I talked about, because we knew that Brockers was a potential trade candidate. You know, it was kind of just a conversation. And I actually mentioned that on the show. Like, how funny would it be for Brockers to have to go to Detroit and face Goff after those comments? And that's exactly what happened. So they said the conversation was civil, though, after that.
Nice. All right, next matchup here, the last matchup, Seahawks versus Colts. Sam Dog, go ahead and give us your take before we all vote.
Well, I will say this, though. I think it's going to be a tough matchup. Frank Reich is a hell of a coach for the Indianapolis Colts. I'll give him that. Actually, when he left Philadelphia, I think that's when Philly's offense went downhill. But I'm definitely not sleeping on him. But we're lucky that they may not have Eric Fisher due to the fact that he's still recovering from that Achilles heel injury. And then, of course, no T.Y. Hilton on the on the injury reserve. And then still got to deal with Michael Pittman Jr., Mo Alley Cox, Zach Pascal, Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, along with Naheem Hines and Marlon Mack. And then Carson Wentz. For Carson Wentz, my take on Carson Wentz is historically in his matchups with us, including playoffs. My Seahawks are 5-0 all time, and even back when he had Frank Reich as his offensive coordinator in Philly, he still struggled against us in the year that Philly won the Super Bowl. I remember because we beat them by 14 points on Sunday Night Football. I was there, and I remember thinking I didn't have any thoughts of what could possibly happen, but I knew Philly was the best team in football that year, and the fact that we beat them the way we did was just it was a surprise to me because we had the worst offensive line in the league that year in 2017. But it all comes down. My biggest concerns with this one are our secondary and offensive line, because even on defense too, for when we're on offense, we got to face the newly acquired defensive end Kwity Paye, and then obviously we got to face DeForest Buckner again, which I still don't get why the heck the Niners even thought about trading him, because that guy was a beast. And then of course, we got to face Darius Leonard, who got the bag this offseason. A hell of a linebacker, one of the other best linebackers in the game alongside Bobby Wagner. And then, of course, CG's boy, Fred Warner. Can't leave out Fred Warner with how good he's been doing, too. But for my Seahawks, if we can just limit the damage of Buckner and freaking Darius Leonard, and then, of course, facing the secondary, we got to face Xavier Rhodes, which I remember one game in particular where we just burnt Rhodes back when Rhodes was a member of the Minnesota Vikings. They got a hell of a secondary, too. And if DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and, of course, newly drafted wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge can get going, I think it's going to be a long day for that Colts secondary, depending on how well we hold up against Buckner and Leonard in that Colts pass rush. But for me, I think it's going to be a close game. I'm not sleeping on Indianapolis, and I think my Seahawks can pull off a victory, but I think it's going to be a close game. I'm not predicting the score, but I got my Seahawks barely pulling it off, though, if it's close.
Okay. Question. You did say Wentz is playing, right?
Yeah, I think Wentz is playing. I know Wentz is listed as questionable, but I think he's going to play. So that's what I'm going into this expecting.
Perfect. Okay. I'll give you my take here, and then we'll move on to Joe, and then CG will be the last one here. Seahawks versus the Colts. Frank Reich, man, I like him. I obviously, Pete Carroll, he's good too, but I'm going to give the edge over to the Colts. I feel like the defense is going to figure it out. And just the only reason why I say that is because obviously you can never count out Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, but there's something about that week one that always kind of makes everybody look a little silly. And the Cardinals are going to look silly probably for the first half. I'm not going to lie to you. But I'm going to go ahead and just give the win to the Colts because their defense is nasty. And that's just kind of my vote there. Go ahead, Joe.
I think this is going to be a very close game. I'm anticipating that. But I also like both of these offenses. The weapons on the offensive side of both teams, awesome. The secondaries for both teams kind of scare me a little bit as far as like a long-term over the season kind of thing. So I think it will be a pretty close game. I really can see this one going either way.
Yep.
I think that Carson Wentz is going to have a little bit of a resurgence out in Indy. You can tell he just lost all of his confidence in Philadelphia. He needed out of there. And I think that Philly with Reich is a great fit. And with the weapons that he has out there, I think it'll be very beneficial to him. And I really do think we see a little bit of a resurgence from him. As far as a pick, I've already gone back and forth like 3 times as we've been talking about this game. But, I'm going to go home team here. So if it was in Seattle, I would go Seattle. But I think I'm going to go ahead and go Indy. I think it'll be a very close game, high-scoring game. I think this will be the highest-scoring game that any 4 of our teams see this week. I really think we could see like a 38-35 kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. CG, man, you're up.
I think it's going to come down to Carson Wentz. He's going to be rusty. He's not going to be ready. So I think Seattle's going to have a better game plan. And I hate to say it, man, but I think Seattle's going to have that slow start. And then in the second half, they're going to come back and win overtime. So as much as I hate to say it, Seattle's going to probably win by 3 or 6 points in this type of game. I expect it to be like a very close game, but I expect the Colts to have a good start. And then somehow Seattle comes out of the blue and Russell Wilson makes that comeback. So
yeah,
it's because of the fact that Carson Wentz is going to probably cause some turnovers, and it's going to hurt the Colts in the long haul a little bit. Seattle may have some weakness, but if Russell Wilson has the time in the world, they're going to win. Just saying.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. One of the things I've always been critical of Russell Wilson on is one of his flaws ever since he first entered the league for the Seahawks is he holds onto the ball too long and takes some unnecessary sacks. And now we got, obviously, your former guy, Shane Waldron, as our offensive coordinator, and he says he wants to make sure Russell Wilson is getting the ball out of his hands fast. And I'm hoping that even on third and shorts that we go, just like what the Packers did in the playoff game against the Rams, they go what the short play where, I mean, there are plays where it's third and short where we go for a deep ball, and I'm just tired of seeing that. I want to see us get the short passes and just worry about getting the first downs, because the short plays will help set up the long plays in the long haul. Every football fan knows that. Run the short plays, and it'll eventually help you set up the long plays too, even with the runs too.
Yeah, I agree. I have a question for you, Sam Dogg. I know one of the biggest, questions going into the season was, hey, did you guys fix your line? How do you feel about your offensive line? Because I think Steezy said he was confident. How do you feel about your offensive line?
Well, I got to see it firsthand now with all the starters in. I know we added Gabe Jackson in a trade with the Raiders, and then we added Stone Forsythe in the draft, and we just took care of Dwayne Brown today with we reworked his contract. So having Dwayne Brown is going to definitely be helpful. I expect maybe as long as Russell Wilson is getting rid of the ball faster and not taking any unnecessary sacks, I think we'll be good, because good quarterbacks take back in the day, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, how quickly they get rid of the ball. Those are the quarterbacks that make their lines look good because of how quickly they can get rid of the ball. But obviously it's going to be tough with having receivers and tight ends get wide open quick like that. But I'm hoping Gerald Everett, that we recently added from the Rams, can do that. And one of the things I loved about Everett coming in was his yards after the catch, where he could just break tackles. I thought that was a major upgrade from Jacob Hollister, since we let Jacob Hollister leave to Buffalo. Now he's on Jacksonville. But other than that, I'm hoping for the best for the offensive line, but my eyes need to see it for myself. And that's just being that's just being honest. That's just me being honest. And I'm always going to be real and just say, I need to see it.
Awesome, man. Cool. All right, man. Well, we got to the point here. Anybody have any questions? It's kind of a free-for-all. Go ahead, Joe.
I have to. I mean, we can't go through an entire NFC West show and not ask CG about the potential impact of Josh Norman. What do you see his impact on the season being?
I expect him to be a good veteran, a guy that would mentor the young DBs, and a guy that would be able to go in if injuries happen. He's not the same player, let's be honest, but he will be able to help these young DBs develop into like really good players. So the expectation for him is he'll be a backup if injuries happen, and he'll be a good coach in the locker room for those DBs for sure. So that's my thoughts of it.
All right. Do we want to lock in where we think all these teams will place before we see any games?
Dude, yes. I want to change my opinion. Darn it.
Already?
Yes. I'm one of those guys.
Okay.
For me, basically, it's whatever happens. It's one game at a time, 1 week at a time for me. I never assume winners and losers. That's just always
translation. Translation, he thinks Seahawks are getting last place. So
exactly. Ding, 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 ding.
I did not freaking say that. I did not say that.
All right. So, anybody else have any other questions?
I'll
all right, AZ.
What's up?
He mute CG. You're
You went back on
mic.
mute.
All right, AZ. So what do you really think? Why do you think that you guys are going to beat the Titans? What's the belief? Like, why should I believe that you guys should beat the
Great question. So honestly,
Titans?
the reason why I changed my pick, because originally I had the Titans winning over the Cardinals. I think that our defense might have the edge up over their defense. I think once our offense can kind of get going, and it might take a few drives, maybe the first quarter, which would be frustrating to see because that's what we saw last year, especially towards the end of the last year. But I think that our defense might have the upper advantage. Yes, our secondary needs help and is a little scarce because Malcolm Butler ended up retiring, but we still have a promise when it comes down to Byron Murphy. He was playing in the slot, primarily, but he's going to be moved to the outside. We got Robert Alford, which has the real good connection with what Julio Jones is. They both play for Falcons, and he was the guy that was covering them in practice. I get it. Practice is practice. But if one thing is, if I was the coach, I would put him on, Julio. AJ Brown's going to have Byron, and we also have a new up-and-coming rookie that's pretty promising, Marco Wilson. He's most likely going to be a slot-type cornerback, but we got Budda Baker. Our defensive line is very, very good. Hopefully, if they can stay healthy, J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, Marcus Golden, and then we got the interior as well. JJ might be the interior as well, but we got some good pieces. Zaven Collins was a very surprise pick. I was one of those was very skeptical when it came down to his pick when we drafted him. But when I've seen him so far in preseason, I like what I've seen. I love his passion. And I do think he's going to be able to command this defense moving forward. So that would be kind of my leg up. I think there's no way we can stop Henry. Like legit, Henry's going to run all over us. But if we can still maintain points for points, I think our defense can maybe make that 1 or 2 stops that can kind of give us that leg up. That's kind of my opinion. It might be a homer opinion, but that's just kind of where I'm at. Quick shout out to my guy Free Matter for the Blinds. It's serious question 1 through 10. How scared of Kyler Murray are you guys for playing the Cardinals? Well, this is a great question. And it might not be a great question for you guys, maybe just more for the Cardinal fans, because obviously we see him as, the next great thing. But let's ask this question. So Joe, go first. Are you scared 1 through 10 from Kyler Murray playing him versus the Cardinals?
It's pretty middle of the road, honestly. He's a very athletic guy who can definitely make some of those amazing plays, but maybe for me specifically, it's not necessarily Kyler Murray. It's the Rams pass rush. I like the guys that we have rushing the passer, and we've seen Donald be able to get to Murray pretty easily over these last couple of years. So,
all right, perfect. CG?
Well, he does concern me because the fact that he can escape from the pressure and be able to extend plays from the pocket. And this guy you're not going to get him like all the way. It's like sometimes you may think you get this guy, but he's going to escape from the pocket. And if this guy slides down, he's playing smart because he's got that baseball background. But this guy could move, and he doesn't get enough credit for what people are talking about. This guy is really good. Like he's like a good quarterback that you can build your team around with. But he's smart when it comes to moving to like sliding down. Most quarterbacks like to take the hit and go with it, but that's the one thing that concerns me. He can get you a penalty like that.
True. Yeah. Sam Dog, what do you think, man?
Well, I mean, he's like a mini version of Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson also has that baseball background as well. And I also remember just that first game where we were basically letting them – you got to be able to let them – I mean, you got to be able to hold them in the pocket, too. I remember the Sunday night game where you guys beat us in that game where basically Russell cost us with those costly interceptions. I mean, Murray, he's incredible, but if you can hold him in the pocket and get sacks on him, and it really helps. Like he was mentioning, referring to Donald. But I think the second matchup, when we finally added Carlos Dunlap in the mix, and we didn't have Jamal Adams the last time around, you could sense the intimidation that Murray was from Jamal Adams in the second matchup, and of course Carlos Dunlap as well. But if you can keep Murray in the pocket and not give him and contain the gaps, because mobile quarterbacks like that, when they can take off running, which Murray can definitely take off running, you want to contain the gaps. It's kind of like with Lamar Jackson. Granted, Kyler Murray has a better throwing arm than Lamar Jackson. So for Kyler Murray, he can give you fits. He's going to be a good quarterback too. So let's see. Maybe I'd give that for me, I would give it about a 5.
A 5. Okay, 5 out of 10. Okay, that's fair. All right, we got my guy 49ers Ultimate Report, and everybody already caught a smirk when he says, Rams guy, why do you let my 49ers beat you?
First of all, I love that you think like that you word the question like it's my decision. Like I
you did it. It's your
49ers. It's cool. Like, but yeah, losing to Mullins was not cool. I'll give you that for sure. But
for 2018.
You gotta hand it to that coaching staff, man. Kyle Shanahan. He's got a way of playing against the Rams. He's got a way of kind of taking what McVay likes to do and taking that away from him and stuff. So we saw that a lot with Jared Goff, who really struggled against the 49ers. We kind of, as Rams fans, we kind of knew that was going to happen, that 49ers week, Jared Goff was going to have a down one. If he's on your fantasy team, put him on the bench or something. Why would he be on your fantasy team, first of all? But if he was, bench him. And so, I mean, it's really just props to that coaching staff, man. Shanahan's he's got something on McVay right now, and hopefully that ends soon because it's not fun.
Yeah, man, that's – go ahead.
I got a question now for the AZ Sports fan. This goes back to last season for like certain like reactions to trades. How crazy was your reaction to when you guys first traded for DeAndre Hopkins? How crazy was your reaction? I mean, even before you did like a video talking about the trade, how crazy was your reaction to that DeAndre Hopkins trade?
Yeah, man. So I remember it was happening during like the free agency frenzy. So like at that point I was living in a 2-story house and I was kind of going back and forth, on the TV and going upstairs to my studio and like recording and stuff. So I was recording a video, like we were like, oh, we're getting Jordan Phillips, cool, this is what it is and blah blah blah. And when I went downstairs, legit, like I saw this trade happen. I was like, wait, what in the living crap is going on right now? And they were like, and we're getting rid of David Johnson. What the heck? And obviously, talking to my wife, she doesn't really care about football, but by that end of the day, she knew who DeAndre Hopkins was. I just kept saying it over and over again, and it was ecstatic because that's kind of one of those things where, like Steve Keim, our general manager, every one of my subscribers know I'm not a big fan of him, but he does one or two things in the off season. Either it's like what draft pick or like a free agency pickup or a trade. He does one of those 2 or 3 things that we're like, okay, that's why we have him. Like that's why we have him. But bottom line, I was extremely excited, man. I don't even know how to even put it into words because, arguably one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And we had him to be with Kyler Murray. So if it just doesn't work out for the Cardinals, let me tell you this right now, Kyler Murray isn't going anywhere. The first person that probably will go somewhere, it either might be Keim or it might be Cliff. Because it's crazy. The Cardinals team right now, although I'm very optimistic right now because we're super close to the season to start, but man, this season could really go any which way for the Cardinals anyways.
Well, and DeAndre Hopkins, granted, he has some of the best hands in the league, man. I remember seeing him. The first time I ever saw Hopkins play in person was that game where I showed you the jersey I got from Pete Carroll when Watson had that shootout against Russell Wilson in 2017. And I remember Hopkins and Fuller and the other weapons that they had that they were put the LOB on notice. This was before we got riddled with all the injuries to the LOB, which happened in Arizona on Thursday Night Football when we wore the action greens. I remember that. I still remember that circus play that Wilson did to Doug Baldwin where he was doing all the pirouettes more than a ballerina, like Steve Rabel said on that play, our broadcaster too. But anyway, probably one of my more crazy reaction streams. I've had 2 of them. One of them happened in 2019 when my Seahawks traded up with the Patriots to get DK Metcalf. Did not see it coming. I was thinking of some of the other possibilities and which other receivers, because I know that Hakeem Butler was a high value pick, like of the receivers, one of the best receivers, and then N'Keal Harry too, and N'Keal Harry's been a big disappointment with the Patriots. Yeah. But I remember just thinking to myself, because I really like big body receivers, and my dad and I have always preached how good it is to have big targets for Russell Wilson. And when we got Metcalf, I remember people always saying like, oh, the cone drill and that too. I was like, nah, wait. And then seeing him in preseason, like one of the first things I said, I was like, wait till Russell Wilson is throwing him the ball. And when Russell started throwing him the ball in the season and he just went off the way he did, I went back to that video and I pinned comments in that video saying, looks like DK Metcalf looking like a steal. Now, when Jamal Adams happened, it was my brother's birthday. I was getting ready to have a bonfire with my friends and smoking cigars and roasting marshmallows and that. And I remember I see my buddy Gangry Dale. I was like, wait a minute, what the heck? And then granted, I didn't say heck either. I said,
yeah, exactly. That's the PG version.
Yeah. So then I remember I do my video of the Jamal Adams trade. I get my buddy Michael Mathis on the phone, who is basically like my Adam Schefter, who basically gets the news from Adam Schefter and he quickly comes back to me like when there's trade news, which he was the one I found out about the DeAndre Hopkins trade from and the David Johnson trade. Like he always gives me anything. And I remember just having him on the phone. I was like, I called him like 6 times. He wouldn't even pick up. Like he was asleep. I'm like, yo, Michael, hurry up and answer the freaking phone, man. We got big news with Jamal Adams. And then I go on, do that video, and he had to go really quick. And he's like, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. And then later that night at my bonfire, I'm drinking booze, smoking a cigar, and then we do a video. You can see that video. It's a little dark. We took shots for Jamal Adams, and I was shooting a fireball. I remember that at my bonfire. We did a shots for Jamal. And then recently, go to my video on my live stream from the last preseason game, and there's another video. Because remember after we beat you guys, Joe, before you guys beat us in the playoffs, and Jamal lit up a cigar, right? I actually, from time to time, I like to smoke cigars too. So, and I even mentioned it to Jamal at camp, and I actually got one of my personal favorite cigars, and I gave it to Jamal Adams at the last preseason game against the Chargers. And you can find that video in my videos too. You can find that in my list of videos. Just type in, like, if you want to see the short version, just type in, I gave Jamal Adams a cigar, or go to my stream from that and fast forward to the 28 minutes and 13-second part to see how the entire moment happened where Jamal took the cigar out of my hand. It was pretty freaking epic.
That's awesome. Hey, Seb, I have a question for you, man. Obviously the biggest, offseason thing from the Seahawks here going on with, Russell Wilson. Obviously he's staying, at least for this year. Do you think that there is a must-win mentality for the Seattle Seahawks for Russell Wilson to want to stay with the Seattle Seahawks? Or do you think like, hey, he's committed, he's going to be our guy for the next several years? Or do you think you need to get past the NFC West Conference in order for him to stay?
Well, in all honesty, I mean, whatever happens with it. I mean, I do hope he stays. I think he loves the Seattle area, and obviously he has a part ownership stake in the Seattle Sounders. But I think one of these days, Seahawks fans, I'm going to be realistic with this. We toughed it out when we were at the end of the Matt Hasselbeck era and had to deal with having Tavares Jackson and Charlie Whitehurst for a couple of years. One of these days, we know with our success, with Russell Wilson keeping us in all these games, which he's always competing, never giving up, no matter how bad it is. One of these days, we're going to have to prepare for life after Russell Wilson. And I don't know how soon that's going to be. I'll let time decide that. So I'm just going to enjoy it while we have it too. But I want to basically draft our next quarterback eventually when we're ready, when the Russell Wilson era gets prepared to end. And I don't want to know who he is yet. I want to know when I see his play on the field to know that we truly have our guy, because you never really know until you see him play and see how smart his decision-making is or how bad it is to know if it's bad or good. But for Russell Wilson, I really hope he plays his entire career here. And I definitely have major intentions to be in Canton, Ohio when he goes into the Hall of Fame and gives his Hall of Fame speech. That's what I want to be.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, this is going to be our last question before we end up our round table. So we got Sam and Joe. Do you think possible half-empty stadiums will negatively affect your team's play this year? I don't know if you guys are just doing half occupancy, but that might be what he's asking.
We're going full capacity. We're going full capacity in Seattle. I'll be in my area. I'll be in my corner pumping up the guys. I mean, granted, now it was tough last year with not having fans in the stadium at all because teams didn't have to face our crowd. And we have a reputation for being the loudest fans in the NFL, also aside from Kansas City and Arrowhead. So I think having the fans back in there making all the noise is going to have major effects going into this season especially with all the 12s in the stadium, because we rocked that house nonstop. Trust me. Yeah. I've been part of some earthquake causing events too. I was even there for the Beastquake.
Nice. And Joe's the same with you, right? You guys are full capacity?
There's no team that is limited capacity at all. Every single NFL team is open for full capacity. So for that, I'm not sure if that was supposed to be a shot at the Rams fan base out in LA, which hey, it happens. LA is one of those cultural hubs where we have a lot of fans of other teams just in the area. It's starting to happen a little bit here in Denver, but those Denver fans are hardcore, so they're still kind of overrunning it. But no, I think that so far we've had some solid. Well, we had a solid turnout against the Chargers. It sounds like the Raiders really had a lot more fans than the Rams for the second game there at SoFi for the preseason. But it's also preseason. It was the second one. I think most people were a little bit more excited to get to either the first one or to get to Sunday Night Football, the Chicago Bears. Our season tickets have been selling just fine. So, no, a half stadium, I don't think it's going to happen. But if it were, we have not seen fans at SoFi yet. So I think it'll only be an improvement no matter what.
It definitely ain't happening in Seattle. Let me tell you that much. We come all out for our games, too. It definitely ain't happening in Seattle. And then and I can answer this one dude that saying that our stadium's a joke with a lot of homeless people hanging around. Well, our city council's a bunch of idiots right now in Seattle. The city council won't do nothing about it. So, yeah, I mean, it's sad to see homeless people out on the street, but that's what we get when we have idiot city councils that won't do anything to help solve the issues,
That's fair. All right, guys. So that's how we're going to end up our roundtable here. So just to let you guys know, we will be doing this every Tuesday. If you guys did enjoy this, definitely smash that like button and subscribe to everybody's channel. Everything's in the description below of this video. So we will be getting on everybody's channel in an opportunity, guys. So thank you so very much for watching. And that's all we got to say, man. Go Cards.
Go Hawks.